Hey, welcome to Faith, Life, and Ministry. I'm joined today with Bill Ankerberg out in the state of Washington and Steve Johnson, who's in California. Steve's my brother, so we've been together the whole ride of this life, and Bill has been a long-term friend. Our compadre, John Van Dinther, is battling pancreatic cancer, and he's in a battle time. So you can include him in your prayers. Today, we want to talk on faith, life, and ministry about just some stories, and particularly stories around how you treat people that are in ministry, how you help people that are going through, just keep them encouraged and keep them going. Bill had some great stories. So, Bill, why don't you pick one of the two and start with that, and then we'll go to Steve.
Well, in 1976, I was in my first church, Calvary Baptist Church in Kewanee, Illinois. 60 people on a Sunday morning for Rally Day, I think it was. And I had a woman in the church who would come in every Tuesday to do the program, to mimeograph the program for the Sunday service. And her name was Ruth Redeen. And her brothers, uh, Edwin and Reuben Olmark, were really some of the founders, really built up Bethel Seminary. And her brother was the dean, and she was a widow, and she would come in every Tuesday. And that church was paying $500 a month. I had a 4-month-old baby. I had $250 a month in school payments, and it was really hard. And as we got into the winter time, uh, I didn't have a winter coat. And I didn't say anything, but she observed that. And one day I came in on a Tuesday, and she had gone out and she had bought me a coat,
Wow.
a nice warm winter coat, and gave it to me. And she was just a widow, living on fixed income, and yet she sacrificed because she wanted to help support the pastor. And I think throughout my ministry, I think people think that stuff like that happens to a pastor every day. If they knew how few and far between those moments are, and how important it is for us to know that the people we pastor can observe us, can see our needs, and can really help. And Paul, you quoted a verse that's really important in that regard.
Yeah, in one of Paul's letters to Timothy, he talks about people that teach are worthy of double honor. And the word for honor, there's actually a financial term.
Yeah.
So it's not saying, I don't think that pastors should be paid twice what everyone else is. But boy, a lot of times, any act of love that you give to a pastor or a staff person at a church, people that don't often get recognized, that can make a world of difference. You know,
Right.
a lot of times I'll be given gift cards for restaurants, and one of the things I've done is a lot of times I'll just send them on to staff people at our church who never would, no one would ever think to give them a gift card. And that's just a small little thing you can do, but anything you can do that makes a difference. What strikes me with Bill's story, though, so that's a 65-year-old story, and
Yeah.
that Bill still remembers and um, and can tell in detail. And I think Bill's challenge to us is you might do something that might have a generational impact, where it not only is part of that person's life, but is told by that person to other people.
And Paul, I know you practice this even with your staff. Say what you do at Christmas time for the families of your staff.
Well, I learned this from Steve, so I'll make
Oh,
a
okay.
comment, but then most of the smart things I've done in life have been because of Steve.
You
But
learned from your
I
brother.
I would I learned from Steve that he would give gifts to the children that attended that were staff members' kids and write them a note and just say, thank you for the service your dad or mom provides. I know there are times that they they work long hours or work weekends, but it makes a big difference. And I just thought that was a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
One thing we're so used to it if you're a pastor that you work weekends, but
Yeah.
a lot of the staff people that we have that might do all kinds of different roles, from working in a cafe to set up and all kinds of things. Well, they're working weekends too, so whenever
Mhm.
someone says, oh, what are you doing for the weekend, I always
Yeah.
chuckle. I always go, well, I'm going to be
Working.
working. And
Yeah.
the people that are staff people do that too. Do you remember that, Steve?
Yep. Yep.
Well, let's say
One
how
other
you.
comment on Bill. Um, the woman who was generous with Bill, um, Bill probably already was incredibly generous. But as his ministry's opportunities grew, so did his generosity. And I really don't know of a more naturally generous person. When the three of us are talking and we're a need comes up, immediately he says, we should take care of that need. It's not, we should talk to somebody about doing it. And so, whoever that woman was, whatever she influenced you with, Bill, you turned out in a great way.
Remarkable way.
Mm.
Steve, why
God is
don't you
good.
tell us about your kind of the biggest story of influence in your life?
Well, I don't think I've ever had an overly inflated view of myself. I think I've had a pretty realistic view. Um, when it comes, at least, to my genetics, there aren't very many things that I do very well. Um, I can't sing. I can't even
Yes, there
clap
are.
on beat. I just mouth the words on Sunday. And when we started our church in River Falls, Wisconsin, no one came to the first service, and gradually people started to come, and that was wonderful. But it was really pretty tiny and really a low salary. It wasn't $500 a month, but it was just under $600. And I can remember asking the person who was telling me about the salary, this was in 1980, um, is it, he said it's $150 a week. And I said to him, okay, um, do you do that on 50 week or 48 weeks or 52 weeks? Because you end up with a fifth Sunday sometimes.
Mhm.
I said, oh, no, sorry, just it's $7,000 a year. That's it. And so, anyway, um, it was an interesting time trying to pay for seminary, trying to start a church uh, in a city with a large university, and we just were making it. And as the church grew, they took care of me better, but it was still just it was really close each month, and I really felt like I wasn't taking care of my family properly. We had two young kids, and um, my wife, and she was taking care of the house and also serving in the church so much. And so it was my last year of seminary. It was approaching, and I went to the financial aids officer, and I had gotten a small scholarship. Um, I I was very appreciative for it, but it wasn't going to solve the problem. And he he was a little short about the whole thing. He said there was this new scholarship that came in, but you wouldn't get it. And so I asked him what it was, and it was called the Leighton Sandy Ford Scholarship. a man named Leighton Ford, who was an evangelist, and Billy Graham's brother-in-law had lost his son during surgery. He was in college. He was a great runner. And that condition that people have with their heart when they're great athletes, that it can just stop.
Mhm.
They were doing surgery to try to prevent that. And after surgery, they weren't able to wake him up. And so they started a scholarship in his name. And I was ended up being the recipient of it, and it helped. But the best part of the whole thing was Leighton wanted to meet whoever was the recipient. And I know that there were a lot better qualified people, who would have applied. And I talked to him about that. He said, "Well, we did a lot of praying, and we kind of followed that." And and so then he decided that he wanted to form a mentoring group. And I've been a part of that for over 40 years.
Right.
And I can remember taking so many walks with him where he'd be just so honest with me, um, and tell me hard things, and also just share with me encouragement like a father would his son. And I don't know that um, there's enough people who are willing to um, bring a person under their wing like that. And it had a huge impact on my life and on my wife's life. And I would just say, if you have the time to care about somebody and meet with them weekly or yearly, um, and just try to encourage them and bless them. Um, his ministry covered all of the costs initially for this group of people, and we traveled wherever we were, and there were people from all over the world. And so it was an opportunity that I saw generosity, I saw integrity, I saw a man who could have been my father, and in just the greatest level of character.
Yeah,
And
and I
I care about me.
I remember times we'd be at either a Thanksgiving or a Christmas celebration, and Steve would get a phone call, and he'd step away from the dinner table, and then he'd come back. He go, "Oh, that was Layden," because
Yep.
Layden would call him on holidays, and just just a remarkable man of making an influence and difference in people's lives, and opening doors. That
94 now, and he hasn't slowed down.
Well,
He's he's continuing to meet with our mentoring group, and uh, just an incredible person.
well, that's amazing. Bill had another really good story, just and kind of a big act of grace that
yeah.
when you think of pastors or you think of staff people, particularly as they're getting started, this would be something to consider.
Well, he was a good friend of mine. His name was Bob, and Bob realized that my oldest daughter was getting ready to start heading away to college, and he was just concerned. And he had talked to my wife. I think had actually complained to him about our finances at times, and we just had credit card debt about $9,000, and we just could never get ahead of it. We were paying off on it every month, but the interest rates were so high, and it just seemed like there was always another emergency that would come up. And he just kept coming to me, say, "Why don't you let me help you with that?" And finally, after I don't know how many dozens of times, I said, "Well, what would you want to do?" And he said, "Well, why don't you just let me pay off your debt?" And I said, "Well, I can't do that." But I said, "How about we work something out, and you'll loan me the money, you'll pay off the debt, and then I'll pay you back. I think I can pay you back $100 a week until the money's paid back." And he said, "Well, I'll do that, but I'll do it at 6% interest." And the interest was kind of a surprise, but I said, "Well, fine." because I knew I had to get out from under the weight of that. And so I started to pay him off. It took almost 2 years to pay him off, and it was really hard. It was hard to not have that extra $100 a week to
Mm-hmm.
stay out of debt and still have that. But then when it was all over, we went out, and he and his wife took us out for a really nice dinner, and they gave us a check for all the interest money and said,
Wow.
now here's a little something to keep you out of debt as you go forward. And honestly, I felt like I had been let out of prison when I was finally debt free like that. I had not known that experience really throughout my whole married life. And now finally, I knew that the joy of just not having that debt over my head anymore. And, I'll be forever grateful to Bob that he helped me with that. And I think looking for creative ways to help the pastor, Bob saw that we were in a hole, and Bob had the capacity. He had sold his business, and he had the capacity to help us out of that hole in a constructive way. And to this day, I mean, that's probably been 30 years ago, and we're still out of debt. I don't have any debt. I live in a house that's paid for now, and I don't have debt over me because of one man who cared enough to change my life.
Yeah, that's a
Wow.
remarkable story. And
Yeah,
what I appreciate about it is just the weight that's when you have financial worries,
yeah,
it's like you're carrying a backpack filled with weight in everything you do. And
yeah,
sometimes when it feels like there's nothing you can do to get out of it, um, it just immobilizing. It's so defeating. And I love too that he didn't just say, "Oh, well, I'll pay it off," without. In a way, he helped you learn how
yeah,
how to how to do your life in a different way.
yeah. How to manage money.
Yeah, and that there's a gift with that too. And if you're listening and you're thinking about this, or if you're a lead pastor and you have staff, just and if you're, I mean, I've spent a lot of my time where I've had a really decent salary, way more than I ever thought I'd make in ministry. But there are times where I'll look and I'll look like I was with a member of our staff today, 3 young kids,
Yeah,
married, both he and his wife are working, their life is stretched, in so many ways. Our lead pastor, um, that I serve under now has 4 young kids,
wow.
and they're you just have to remember the challenges that people are facing. Remember back what that was like, and is there anything you can do that would help them, would encourage them, would show them support? And
Yeah,
a lot of times, if it's a monetary gift that would let them do a date night or
mm,
a weekend away, boy, that
yeah,
makes a difference.
yeah.
Well, guys, we're going to wrap it up. I don't have a story where somebody did that for me as much,
Oh,
but I um, I've surely have benefited from Steve's generosity and from your generosity, Bill, and from many people, but just not as great a story. Any closing thoughts? Let's go to you first, Steve.
Well, I think that if you listen to this and you would like to be remembered by someone like Bill for changing his life for a relatively modest amount of money, just choosing to be generous. It used to be that our outrageous goal was to be paid what a school teacher earns. I don't know if you guys remember that, but um,
yeah,
I, and the truth is that nobody thinks that a teacher is being overly paid, and so um, anything that you do just to surprise them, especially if it's totally anonymously, uh, let them uh, let them be thinking and guessing about who was so kind to them.
And everybody in church, I think, thinks that everybody's being so great to the pastor, and the pastor is getting all these wonderful things, and he's on the yellow brick road or something, you know. And it's not like that. It's actually probably more rare than you realize. And just make up your mind that you're going to be an encouragement to your pastor or your pastors, and that you're going to do something tangible on a regular basis just to support them in the work they're doing for Christ.
Great word and great challenge. Hey, thanks for listening. And if you're a pastor, send this on to some lay people and get them engaged and
Yeah.
showing love to other staff people. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.